All right, everyone, ready to really dive deep today?
Always.
Today we're looking into the fourth industrial revolution, and
Ooh, big one.
it is a big one. And I think it's something that people hear. They hear that phrase, fourth industrial revolution, and maybe their eyes kind of glaze over a little bit, like,
Yes,
oh, is
sir.
this just about like a new iPhone or
Yeah,
something?
right.
But we're talking about something way bigger than that. We're talking about a total transformation of how we live, work, and even what it means to be human.
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating to me is just the speed at which this is all happening. The World Economic Forum, they put out a report and they predict that we're about to hit this series of what they call tipping points,
Okay.
where all these different technologies suddenly go mainstream. And just to kind of, blow your mind a little bit, one of these tipping points they talk about is that 80% of people will have some sort of digital presence by 2025. And so when you think about that, I mean, what does that mean for privacy? What does that mean for identity? And that's just one example.
It's pretty mind-blowing. So to try to wrap our heads around all of this,
Yeah.
we've got some great sources that we're going to be digging into today.
Yeah,
Excerpts from the book The Fourth Industrial Revolution
classic.
and that WEF report that you mentioned with all these crazy tipping points.
Yeah, super interesting stuff.
So to kind of kick things off, let's just try to define what we're talking about here. What exactly makes the Fourth Industrial Revolution different from say the first three?
Right. Well, I mean, if you think about it, the first three industrial revolutions, they were all about harnessing new forms of power.
Yeah.
We went from, muscle power to steam power to electricity to computing.
Right.
But this one feels different. It's not just about a new power source. It's really about the convergence of the physical world, the digital world, and the biological world. All these lines that we used to think were very distinct, very clear, they're starting to blur.
So it's not just that we have more powerful computers. It's that those computers are now like interacting with the physical world
Yeah.
in ways we never really imagined before.
Exactly.
So like self-driving cars, for example.
Yeah, like self-driving cars. And even those cars, they're being powered by artificial intelligence that's learning and evolving all the time
Right.
at this crazy exponential rate. And it's mind-boggling when you think about it. The first three industrial revolutions, those unfolded over centuries.
Yeah.
But, the internet went from this kind of niche technology to a global phenomenon, I mean, in less than a decade.
That's true.
And that pace of change, that's one of the things that really defines what we're experiencing right now.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've got this convergence of all these different technologies, and it's all happening really, really fast.
Yeah.
So what are some of the specific advancements that are kind of driving this revolution? The book talks about three core areas.
Yeah.
It's physical, digital, and biological.
Yeah, and each one of those, is advancing at this just crazy, crazy pace. So on the physical side, you've got things like advanced robotics, 3D printing, where you can create custom products, just on demand, and even, new materials with these like almost impossible properties, like self-healing metals.
So the physical world is almost becoming more adaptable, more responsive, almost like it's becoming programmable in a way.
It is, yeah. It's very interesting to think about. And
Right.
and that's all, being driven by these advancements in the digital world as well. It's not just about computers and smartphones anymore. We're talking about trillions of sensors.
Wow.
The Internet of Things, everything's connected, collecting all this data, analyzing it on this scale that we've never seen before. And that data, I mean, that's what's fueling everything from personalized marketing to smart cities that can optimize traffic flow and energy consumption.
Right. But it's not all about data and devices, right?
Yeah.
What about the biological side of things?
Yeah.
That's where it starts to get really, really kind of science fiction-y, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it definitely feels like science fiction, but it's becoming more and more real all the time. For example, gene editing with CRISPR. I mean, this is giving us the ability to manipulate, the very building blocks of life with with incredible precision.
Mm,
We're talking about potentially curing genetic diseases, creating new forms of life, even enhancing human capabilities.
right.
And, the ethical questions, I mean, they're huge, they're massive, but the potential impact is undeniable.
Yeah, it's both exciting and a little bit terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, how society is going to keep up with this level of change, especially when you look at, these tipping points that the WF report is talking about. They sound like moments where, the world as we know it could shift pretty dramatically.
They do, yeah. They're really fascinating to think about. I mean, we've already touched on a couple of them. The 80% of people with this digital presence by 2025, which really raises all these questions about identity, privacy in this hyper-connected world.
Right.
Another tipping point, they predict that 90% of people will be using smartphones by 2025. I mean, essentially, we're talking about putting a supercomputer in everybody's pocket.
Which could be amazing for
Yeah.
access to information, access to opportunities,
Yeah.
but also, I mean, it could potentially exacerbate, existing inequality.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about the prediction that 10% of all cars on U.S. roads will be driverless by 2025?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that seems like a pretty significant change to how we get around.
Yeah, it's a huge change. I mean, it's one example of how this revolution is going to reshape our cities and our lives. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine the impact on the trucking industry, for example,
Right.
or the potential for cities to be, redesigned with less space for parking and more space for, parks and public spaces. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing to think about.
It sounds like these tipping points are more than just technological milestones. They're almost like social and economic inflection points as well.
They are, yeah. I mean, you can't separate the technology from the social and economic impact.
Right.
They're all intertwined, and one of the areas where I think we're going to see the most profound impact is in the world of work.
Yeah, I mean that's what everybody seems to be talking about, right?
Right.
It's robots taking jobs. What's
Yeah.
what's the real story there?
I mean, it is true that automation is going to displace some types of jobs, especially, those that involve a lot of repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
Think about like manufacturing assembly lines or data entry.
Right, right. Those are the jobs that we typically think of when we hear, robots are taking over.
Yeah.
But you said it's more complicated than that.
It is. It is more complicated. And one of the things that I found really interesting in the book was that this revolution, it's actually creating fewer new jobs than previous ones.
Really?
And that's because the nature of work itself is fundamentally changing.
So it's not just about jobs disappearing, it's about entirely new types of jobs emerging that we can't even imagine yet.
Exactly. And think about it this way.
Correct.
When the internet first came out, did anyone predict the rise of, social media managers or YouTube influencers? I mean, probably not. And those are just, a few examples of literally millions of jobs that didn't exist a generation ago.
That's true.
And the challenge is that this revolution demands these skills that we haven't even really invented yet.
Okay, so if I'm listening to this right now, what does this all mean for me? What can I do to prepare for this future where the job market is constantly shifting?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
I think the key takeaway here is that adaptability and lifelong learning, these aren't just buzzwords anymore. They're essential survival skills.
Right.
In the fourth industrial revolution, and the book talks about this concept of talentism, where talent, your skills, your knowledge, this becomes the key differentiator in the economy.
So it's not just about what you know today.
Yeah.
It's about your ability to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn throughout your career.
Exactly. And this shift isn't just happening for individuals,
Right.
Businesses are also being forced to adapt at this incredible pace.
Wow.
And the companies that thrive in this new environment, they're not necessarily the biggest or the most established.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are the most agile and responsive to change.
So what does that look like in practice?
Yeah.
What are some of the trends that businesses need to be aware of?
Well, one key shift is this move from selling products to delivering services.
Yeah.
And Tesla is a perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just selling cars, they're selling a transportation experience, that includes things like over-the-air software updates, self-driving features, and this constantly evolving ecosystem of services.
So it's almost like the product is never finished.
Right.
It's always improving and adapting.
Exactly.
That's a pretty big departure from the traditional model of, manufacturing and selling physical goods.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It is, and it ties into another major trend, which is this focus on customer experience and personalization. Companies are using data to understand their customers better and tailor their offerings to meet individual needs and preferences.
Right.
I mean, think about how Netflix recommends movies based on your viewing history, or how Amazon suggests products that you might like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about giving people what they want, when they want it, and where they want it.
Exactly.
But it also raises questions about, data privacy and the potential for, manipulation.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ethical considerations around data, these are paramount.
Right.
In this revolution, and it's not just about how companies use data, it's about how governments regulate it and how individuals understand and control their own data footprints.
So businesses need to be adaptable, customer-centric, and ethically responsible with data.
Yeah.
That's a tall order.
It is. It is.
What other trends are kind of shaping the business landscape in this fourth industrial revolution?
Well, collaboration is becoming increasingly important. And we're seeing, more and more partnerships between, large companies and startups where each kind of brings different strengths to the table.
Right.
The big players, they have the resources, they have the scale, and the startups bring agility and fresh perspectives.
It's saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. And the spirit of collaboration, this isn't limited to businesses.
Right.
Governments also have this crucial role to play in shaping the future of this revolution.
That's an interesting point, because it often feels like governments are kind of lagging behind when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
How can they adapt to this rapidly changing environment?
Well, the book talks about this idea of what it calls agile governance.
Okay.
And this means being more flexible, more collaborative, and more responsive to change.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
How can a government be agile?
Well, it's about moving away from these traditional hierarchical structures and embracing more decentralized decision making. It's about fostering this closer collaboration between government agencies, businesses, and citizens.
Right.
And it's about being proactive, in anticipating and responding to the challenges and the opportunities that are created by these new technologies.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty radical shift in how governments operate.
Yeah, it is.
But it also seems essential if they're going to keep up with the pace of change.
It is.
That we're talking about in this fourth industrial revolution.
And this need for agility, this need for adaptation, I mean, it's not limited to institutions. It's something that we all need to embrace as individuals.
Yeah, and that brings us back to this idea of talentism and the need for lifelong learning.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder about the potential downsides of this revolution. What about the people who struggle to adapt or who get left behind by these rapid changes?
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it's something that we need to address as a society, and the book actually talks about this paradox of empowerment and disempowerment.
What does that mean?
Well, on the one hand, technology is giving us this access to more information and more opportunities than ever before. I mean, we can connect with people all over the world. We can learn new skills online. We can even start businesses from our bedroom. I mean, it's incredibly empowering.
Right.
But on the other hand, there's this risk of widening the gap between the people who have the skills and the resources to thrive in this new environment and those who don't.
So it's not enough to just kind of celebrate the potential of technology.
No.
We also need to be mindful of the potential for inequality and exclusion.
Exactly. And this ties into another key takeaway from the book, which is the importance of values and ethics.
You've mentioned ethics a few times now.
Yeah.
Why is that so important in the context of this fourth industrial revolution?
Well, because technology is never neutral.
Right.
It's a tool that can be used for good or for ill.
Right.
And the choices that we make about how we develop and deploy technology, I mean, these are going to have profound implications for the future of humanity.
So it's not just about what we can do with
No,
technology.
no,
It's about what we should do.
exactly.
And that requires, I mean, a deep reflection on our values and what kind of world we want to create.
It does, and that reflection needs to happen at all levels, from
Oh, yeah.
individuals making choices about how they use technology in their daily lives to businesses developing, ethical guidelines for artificial intelligence, to governments creating regulations that protect citizens' rights and promote the common good.
Yeah, it sounds like this fourth industrial revolution is more than just a technological shift.
It is.
It's a cultural and ethical shift as well.
Yeah.
And it's one that requires all of us to be engaged and informed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the areas where I think this shift is going to be most profound is in our understanding of what it means to be human.
Okay, that's a pretty big statement.
It is.
What do you mean by that? Well, you've mentioned, gene editing and artificial intelligence a few times, and
Yeah.
those feel like areas where the lines are already starting to blur
Yeah.
between human and machine.
Yeah. Yeah. And the WEF report, it actually points to another tipping point that's relevant here, which is the potential for implantable technologies to become mainstream by 2025.
Okay.
And we're not just talking about, pacemakers anymore. I mean,
Right.
imagine devices that can, enhance our cognitive abilities or store our memories or even connect our brains directly to the internet.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
It does.
But it also raises some pretty profound questions.
Yeah.
Like what happens to our sense of self? When we start merging with technology in these really fundamental ways.
That's exactly the point. The fourth industrial revolution. It's not just changing the world around us. It's changing our understanding of what it means to be human.
Right.
And that's both exhilarating and a little bit unsettling, I think.
Yeah, definitely unsettling. It feels like we're entering uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Both technologically and ethically.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of ethics, one thing that really struck me in the book was the emphasis on cultivating certain human qualities
Yeah.
that will be essential in this new era. Things like empathy, compassion, even what the author calls physical intelligence.
Right. And he argues, that these qualities, they're going to become even more valuable in a world where technology is automating so many tasks.
Right.
Empathy and compassion will be crucial for navigating all these complex social and ethical challenges that we've been talking about, and then physical intelligence, taking care of our physical and mental well-being. That's going to be essential for staying grounded and resilient
Okay.
in this world that's constantly changing.
So it sounds like we need to become more human, not less,
I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
in order to thrive in this technological revolution.
The fourth industrial revolution, I mean, it presents us with all these incredible opportunities, but it also demands that we double down on our humanity.
So after diving deep into these sources, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think for me, it's just this realization that this is happening now. This isn't some distant future scenario,
Right.
The choices that we make today as individuals, as businesses, as a society, I mean, these choices are going to determine what kind of future we create.
Yeah, that's a powerful message, and it's a bit daunting to think about, the responsibility we all have in shaping this new world.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly exciting.
It is.
What excites you the most about the fourth industrial revolution?
What excites me the most is the potential for technology to solve some of the world's most pressing problems, from climate change to poverty to disease. I mean, we have the tools
Right.
to make a real difference, but it's up to us to use those tools wisely and ethically.
Yeah, that's a great point to end on. So to everyone listening, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
But this is really just the beginning of the conversation. It's
Yeah.
the fourth industrial revolution. This is an unfolding story.
It is.
And we're all characters in that story. So what role will you play?
Yeah.
What will you create?
What will you change?
The future is yours
Yeah.
to shape